This week on The Chef's Cut, Joe and I are joined by chef, cookbook author, all-around award-winning badass Mike Solomonov of Philadelphia's Zahav and other restaurants. We're going to talk with Mike about opening up the world of fine dining to new cuisines.
I'm like, nobody's fucking eating like this in the States.
The reason Philly is the hottest food scene in America right now.
Oftentimes our employees and our guests share the same zip code.
And how he made it through a night service with absolutely no electricity.
I was running hotel pans of glazed lamb shoulder 600 feet back and forth.
But first, Chef's Cut Nation, we need 10 seconds of your time. Please be sure to rate and review wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe on YouTube. It really helps.
We have Mike Solomonov.
Yes. Oh my God, Joe. Now, this is maybe a little controversial, but for the past maybe 8 to 10 years, I have said that my top 3 food cities in the U.S. are Chicago, Philadelphia, and New Orleans. I mean, I think the 3 cities, they have such diversity and they celebrate that diversity. People aren't trying to like conform their cuisine to a French paradigm or a tasting menu format. You have people making really good food. Philly was always known for French fine dining. You had Georges Perrier at Bec-Fin and you had Marc Vetri with his restaurants. You had fine dining French and fine dining Italian. But when Mike Solomonov opened Zahav in Philly, it changed the game. Like, obviously, in 2026, we know modern Middle Eastern cuisine. But in 2008, when he opened Zahav,
crazy
that
one.
hadn't been done before.
No, and I don't think that gets enough like praise of like, not only did he go out on this limb, but then it's a limb that, you know, so many people have joined him on. You know, we've seen the renaissance of that over the last 2 decades almost now.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, Michael is a huge part of that. Like, yeah, he's won awards. Yeah, he's done all that. But I think his approach to saying, you know, I'm going to take the food of, you know, kind of my ancestors and what I grew up with and take all this technique on all this sourcing, you know, and use that to tell this, right?
Yeah.
And I think it plays out over all these different cuisines. I think Italian cuisine kind of was the bearer of it first. And then now we're watching it flow through even all the Afro-Caribbean stuff we've been talking about lately.
Right. And we've had a lot of the people who are responsible for bringing these new cuisines to the forefront of American dining. And that's why it's so exciting to have Mike Solomonov today, because he is one of those people who ushered in new types of dining across America. So I'm super excited to talk to him today. It seems like the food scene in Philly has just, I mean, it's gone bananas over the past, 8 to 10 years. First, we had Cleaning Up with James Beard Awards. Then the Michelin Guide entered Philly.
Yeah.
What has changed in the time that you've been in Philly that the food scene has grown so much? What have you seen change?
I mean, honestly, so much has changed. I think that the beautiful thing about Philly is that just the cost of living and cost of doing business is still, compared to other big cities, reasonable. And that allows for extremely personal, I wouldn't say low risk because it's still like we're still in restaurants here. But like we are a very immigrant friendly city and we have people that move to the city from all over the world that can basically afford to like open restaurants in the city. You know, and I don't know, it's just a weird thing. I say this all the time, but like oftentimes our employees and our guests share the same zip code. And
that's cool.
That's a really special thing. I think that just sort of the expansion of the city before it was like when I first moved here and I worked at Vetri. At the time, though, it was like you worked at Vetri if you wanted small Italian. You worked at Stripas if you wanted like French and kind of New American, or you worked at like Bec-Fin, and then, or you worked for Steven Starr if you wanted to learn sort of volume and systems and all that. And now, you know, you could go work for Christina Martinez at South Philly Barbacoa and make like the sickest fucking lamb tacos. Right. There's just so many different kinds of places to work here. I mean, we have the best Chinatown. Philly is the best Chinatown.
But that's what every Philly
awesome.
person used to talk about. I worked with when we opened Girl and the Goat. It was like our crew was super Philly heavy for some reason.
Yeah.
And all they used to talk about, they were like, the Chinese food in Philly is the best Chinese food.
It's
Yeah.
so
They
good.
constantly would beat that drum.
It's crazy good. I mean, it's just crazy good. And it's like pretty big, I think, in terms of like North America. I think it's like what, San Francisco, Vancouver, maybe LA, and then Philly or something like that.
Wow.
But for Center City, that's kind of a big deal. And so I don't know. And then we get huge Vietnamese, huge Cambodian, huge prevalent population. The city is just rich. And so before, I think it was a little bit less. I don't want to just use the word diverse because that's not accurate. Philly's extremely
Yeah.
diverse, but the representation was a little bit different.
Mm.
And I think that also that changed with the American diner wanting more. The idea that before it was like, you go to like Spiaggia and spend a ton of money on fancy wine, Joe, right? And that was the
Mhm.
idea. Or you go to Le
Yeah.
Berlin, and
Yeah.
that was like going out. And now there are so many different ways to experience dining
Yes.
and restaurants, and it doesn't have to be that. So that's what has changed so much with Philly. And Philly's a blue collar city and kind of perfect for that variety.
Yep. I love it. That's like being from Chicago. Like Joe and I both grew up on the south side of Chicago. We didn't know each other until we met on Top Chef,
Yeah.
but there was something about him. It's like you can tell people from cities like Chicago, Detroit, Philly. There's just like this blue collar ethos where it's about work, it's about determination, it's about substance over style.
Mhm.
And I think that's what I love so much about the food in Philly is people care more about the ingredients. They care more about what goes into it. And
Right.
Joe was actually telling me a little bit about your sourcing and how
Yeah.
that was a huge inspiration for him.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, you and I met because when you did your cookbook launch, we did it at Cafe Spiaggia. Right?
Oh yeah.
And I
That
remember
was our first stop on our first cookbook tour.
that was the first stop.
First stop. Yep.
Oh man.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So I remember being so nervous and you sent me the cookbook and I was reading it, like front to back, and I knew none of the ingredients. I didn't know how to pronounce anything. And we had a couple calls together and you were beyond nice. I think what struck me when I read the book the first time, I still have.
Aw.
I still have. It's one of the only books I have 2 copies of on my shelf because you signed one for me and you signed one for my wife. And so
Oh man.
they both
Thank
sit right
you.
behind me. But you were so intentional, not just, when you talked to me through everything about not just like how to cook things. You're like, all right, just do it like this and this, and I'll set it up. But you're like, it has to be a tahini like this. It has to be
Yeah.
lamb shoulders like this. The attention to detail, I mean, to me, that was like so inspiring. It's like the putting the importance of like, you never talked about like the plate up with me before that. It was like, we just needed to be like, we need to start with this. Because if we
Right.
don't start with this, we're not going anywhere. And like your level of dedication and passion for that, I thought was so inspiring. And like, how I thought about cooking since then, like
Well,
completely.
I really appreciate it. I mean, I feel like not that much has changed in terms of my ethos, right? Where it's funny, like the plate up, I could kind of care less about. I mean, obviously during service, I'll like change it 100 times. And this goes back to this sort of idea of our cities at large, which is that like hype doesn't work in places and it has to have soul and has to be emotional,
Mhm.
No, the food that you all were part of at Spiaggia really changed like Italian food in the United States kind of before. And I, worked at Vetri, which I think was kind of on the same, had the same sort of impact, I mean, I don't know. So when you learn from people that really care deeply about process and about ingredients and about preserving integrity and not like, likes or fucking whatever it is that we
Right.
all have to be concerned about all the time, I think it really changes the way that you approach food and then approach people.
This is something, Mike, that we've asked like Nina Compton when she was ushering in Afro-Caribbean cuisine,
Yeah.
Simon Kim,
Yeah.
opening up a Korean steakhouse. Like, how did you know that this would work?
Well, we definitely didn't know that it would work. We bullshitted investors and said, this is going to be the next big thing. because there's so many different kinds of gastronomies that make up like Israeli cuisine specifically. At the time, before we opened Zahav, if you wanted to be a recognized chef, you went to New York and you French food, and then you went to like either France or Spain. Like everybody was going to Mugaritz or Arzak. I almost did a 2 year stage at Arzak. At the time, they only had 2 year
Oh,
stages
gosh.
at the time.
Wild.
Yeah, if you were
And
really trying to like get into Ilbali, it was the only other like
Ilbali was like almost impossible.
those three were like everybody was
It
trying
was
to get there.
Arzak, Ilbali, Mugaritz, or
Mugaritz,
whatever.
yeah.
And so, or you went to Michel Bras, or if you went like the Italian route, you just kind of worked wherever and just like, held farm. And so, and then you went back to your city, presumably New York or SF, and you opened a restaurant and you got a Michelin star and you died. And that was like what you, right? That was the goal.
Yeah.
100%. The
100%.
formula.
100%.
That was it.
That was the playbook.
You neglect your family and you make like $42,000 a year and then you like die, right? And so, I went back to Israel to visit my brother and my mom, and I've been there in a while. And I was just like, I was shopping to make a meal for my mom. She bought me a plane ticket and I said I would cook dinner for her friends, which I thought was like 5 people, and she'd invited like 40 over like 2 days. And I was like, fuck, and so
Thanks, Mom.
getting to travel the country and understand the sort of importance of that food and that cuisine and that place with, trying to plan a meal was really eye-opening. And then I went back a couple years later and just went to the Hatikva neighborhood, and there all these different like grill kind of restaurants that were basically presumably just like a bunch of different salads, charcoal, and then there was sort of a communal like taboon or like tandoor oven in the middle, and all the servers would run and get bread from that oven. And so you'd sit down and they'd be like, "You want salad?" And you'd be like, "Yes." And there'd be like 20 different little dishes. And then you'd pick your meat, which was like skewered and cooked directly over charcoal, like an inch over charcoal. And this laffa bread, this is sort of an Iraqi style pita that's actually speaks to trade and sort of cultural exchange between, Baghdadi merchants in like India, which is why we also use mango pickle. It's great. It's fascinating. That's like bread, right? And then there'd be all these different salads that discuss sort of anthropology, commonality, conflict, even, and it was like so amazing. And I'm like, nobody's fucking eating like this in the States. And actually, that was really when we had discussed Zahav, it was more of like what Laser Wolf is now. We just didn't think people would totally understand that. So we wanted to create more of a restaurant, and Zahav is considered to be a little bit more fine dining, but it's not. I mean, it's not fine dining. It's just, I guess, more elaborate. But that was it. So yeah, I was just like eating there and being like, man, nobody's doing anything like this at all, and I want to be the first. I want to be the person to bring it. And I didn't think it would be.
You didn't
I
think
didn't
you
know.
were going to win all the
Well,
awards.
I don't know what. Well,
and
definitely
make
not.
this.
Definitely not awards. Definitely not awards. Definitely not mass recognition and success for us is what, staying open for a couple years or not losing money
Right.
for 5 years in a row, being able to pay yourself. That came only after 3 years.
Nice.
I don't know. Right. Exactly.
That's great.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know. And then everybody talks about, the awards and stuff, and that's great. But like the reality is, we're almost 18 years old. We made some mistakes last night doing service. Tonight we have to, the curtains go up and we have to do it better than we did last night. So I don't know.
Yeah. And I think it's, I remember like, reading your book for the first time. And before I worked for Tony, I'd come from 2 years of making Korean barbecue. So I was like,
so you're like
I was
banchan.
like, I was like,
Yeah.
like you were describing to me on the phone. I was like, maybe
It's Middle Eastern banchan.
You were like, yes, exactly. I was like, holy shit. I was like, this is awesome.
Just put a little bit more salt and lemon that you think, and you're
Right,
good.
right.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, dude, we're making like Korean barbecue, but just we're flipping the flavors. And I was like, all right, I get it now. Like, I understand. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And so I thought it was so cool, and that, something I do.
Yeah, and that's been like a common theme with some of the people that we've talked with on the pod. Like, they didn't see it before. And they didn't even start off cooking that type of food. Most of the chefs that we've talked with, they weren't cooking the kind of food that they are now known for, and that they created this massive space on the American table of bringing these new cultures forward. But
Yeah.
at the time that they started, it wasn't being done. And so Joe and I are always like, how did you know? Like, how did you know that this would work? And there is no one answer. Everybody's like, I had no idea what.
Yeah, it's like I took a shot.
Well, we almost went under. I mean, we had a really, really rough opening, and we opened in 2008, and
Oh, that was a tough year.
shitty year. I mean, it seems in
Oh.
retrospect after COVID, you're like, well, it wasn't so bad, but it was really, really bad. I was struggling with drug addiction and kind of keeping it a secret. And so we had opened in May. I was in rehab in like July. I found out in rehab on a payphone that we had won Esquire's like top whatever. And then in October, right before the awards for that, maybe it was during, I like received an award next to Daniel, but like all my heroes.
Wow.
And then Wachovia and AIG went under, and we were doing like 17 covers a night. And it was so bad. I was like, in and out of like relapsing, and had to borrow money from my dad for the first time. We grew up pretty modest, and so I had to like borrow money from my dad who was in Israel to make payroll. He knew that I was like 50 or 60 days clean. I was calling my father in a different country to ask for a check for like 10 grand or whatever to like literally make payroll. And after I had just come out of rehab, and I remember, Steve and I were like in the back of Zahav smoking cigarettes, like, oh fuck, what do we do? Like, I've never had to ask my parents, like I've never been in a position like that before. And I was doing it like very early in recovery. And I remember calling him, and he's like, okay, are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like, yeah. And so I hang up, and then Steve's phone rings, and it was my dad calling to make sure that I was like not, use your imagination. And God, it was so shitty. It was so fucking bad. So we did that. And then, we had to do like restaurant week, which we never thought we'd be we would have to. And, which was a really important lesson for us, just in terms of being fucking humble and like paying attention to our guests, knowing that our guests are like the most important thing, not our egos. And so, we did restaurant week, which actually forced us to put our menu in like a 5-course sort of vibe, which was like it was like the first time we could actually communicate with our guests on how to eat the food. And I remember we were like busy for the first time. It was like 1 week. And because it was kind of recession time, they did 2 weeks of restaurant week. And break even was like $40,000 for us a week. We did 52 grand the first week of restaurant week. And I was like, oh my God. And then the first Saturday in between both weeks, our hot water heater went out, and it cost $12,000 to repair. And I was like, oh my God. And so we couldn't stop, obviously. So this is completely against code. We had giant stock pots of boiling water at all times, and we were doing dishes in there because we were like, we just had no choice. It fucking sucked. But that was when I think we were going to make it. I was like,
that's
okay.
Tough.
Yeah, it was fucking nuts.
Jeez, and kudos to you for sticking with it, personally, with everything that you were going through, as well as professionally, because that is
so hard.
I can't imagine. What's something that you never thought that you'd be doing in your career that you're currently doing?
I mean, listen, I live a life beyond my wildest dreams. So like the idea that people like you all that are successful, that I look up to, want to like talk to me after the shit that I've been through, that I've like done, is amazing. Like that's amazing. Like from a recovery standpoint, that's a fucking amazing. And I would say that the privilege of being able to practice hospitality, which is just essentially generosity, after I've taken so much from people, is fucking amazing. I mean, that's huge. So that's amazing. I don't know. I mean, God, it's hard. Like,
and any kind of hummus at Whole Foods now.
Hummus on Whole Foods. My picture on the hummus being able to like walk down the street with my kids and
And can I tell you, like,
yeah.
and people
Most
are probably
handsome hummus
recognize
in the
you.
store.
Right.
thanks. Got a face for radio, bro. I don't know. I think that if we changed the label, we'd probably sell more hummus. But
It's so funny when you opened Dizengoff. I remember my husband and I, we would, take weekend trips to Philly here and there to go to Reading Terminal Market and all these
Yeah.
places. And we're like, oh, Mike opened a new place. Let's go check out Dizengoff. And I was like, this is the best hummus I've ever had. When I tasted it, I was like, what is going on
Now,
here?
when he made it at Cafe Spiaggia, that was the first time, and I was like, oh, I've never had hummus.
Oh,
Like,
well,
Yeah.
I mean, like
Yep.
I thought I had. I was like, holy shit.
well, I
was
listen. I
like,
mean,
this is crazy.
that like the things that I don't like doing now. We've got hundreds of employees, and I do feel like I'm a bit of an HR director, and I really don't like that. I don't think I'm that good at that. We have an amazing HR director, but my partner Steve and I really do spend a whole lot of time managing all of it, though I really do try to put a positive perspective on because that essentially is the only control we have in our lives.
I think it's wild too. It's like we came up in an industry and at a time where it's like you had to like go hat in hand to places to get a job, right? And be like, please just let me work here. Please
I'll work
just
for
let me
free.
I'll
right.
work for
For
free.
just let me be in your kitchen. Just give me a shot. You know what I mean? I'm
You don't
not a
even have
piece
to
of
pay
shit.
me.
I'll show up tomorrow.
Yep.
Like I promise I'll work hard. And I think like that's the weirdest thing. Like for me, it's like as my career's grown, it's like, oh no, like people like pay me to be somewhere.
Yeah.
Like people want to like talk to me. Like you know what I mean? I like beg people to let me like clean their shallots.
Right.
You
Right.
know what I mean? So it's
Right.
like I think like that's the perspective always of like all the craziness is just like it's like, man, it's like we did way worse shit for way less. You know what I mean? To get here. You know what I mean? It
Well,
was like, so it's like
that's the important thing, though, also, and maybe the lesson is to never believe what you read about yourself,
yeah.
and I feel, and like, again, for better or for worse. But I would say, like, the real question, like, how do I keep going? It's my business partner, Steve, and, he and I are besties. We're BFFs and brothers, and we've been through hell and back. I could not imagine doing any of this shit alone. And the secret to our success is our partnership.
Nice.
I say that all the time. Like somebody asked me the other day, they're like, "Oh, you had all this stuff going on. How do you do it?" It's like good partnership. It's like at home, at work, everywhere. It's like
100%.
my life is filled with tremendous partners in everything I do, from my personal life to my professional life. And it's the
Good.
only reason I exist, and it's the only reason I'm successful. Without it, I am just a wild man on the lamb. Like, you know what I mean? There's like, it's like I need it. I have to have it. Otherwise, it's just like, we're just, dive bar legends.
We think about this. I mean, we still want to be dive bar legends, but
right?
it's fine. I drink club sodas
my
and dive
goal.
bars now. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
awesome. But I think, early on, one of my amazing sous chefs, Shazad Khan, he was the exec sous and eventually CDC at Straight Bass under Terrence. The best cook I've ever worked with to this day. Just unbelievable cook. And he was like, a good cook knows when to ask for help. And that was also back in the day where you still didn't ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was a hostile, very competitive environment. And I remember in very early recovery being like, fuck, I need to like ask people for help because I can't do this shit alone. And so I think that lesson is like a template for life. Like I think we're not taught that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's not okay to like ask for things when you need them. And I'm not just talking about like time off or whatever. Sometimes it gets to be too much and you're like, I need somebody, I need support.
There is a special part of the show, Chef, that we love to get into, and we love to call it walk-in confessions.
Mm.
And this is like a funny story from earlier in your career, a time you had to pull a rabbit out of a hat, or maybe it didn't happen, but you
Or
figured
maybe
it
that
out.
service that was almost your last one where you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna go out this back door and
Yeah.
go into the night. And people will be like, remember that Mike guy who worked
What
here?
are you
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
Cute
Yeah,
kid.
that happens once a week, I think. Oh my God. Okay, so when we did our first major renovation at Zahav, we were expanding. There was like a music studio next to us, and they left, and then we took it over to create private rooms. We were renovating the kitchen after we had kind of opened the private rooms, and they were cutting into the floor to like lengthen plumbing into a different kitchen for more drainage. And they hit like an electrical line that was like from the city, but there was like a live wire in the ground of Zahav, and we'd lost power. What we had decided to do was, because we were renovating the kitchen and the dining room at Zahav, is that we were going to do these family style dinners in the private rooms to keep everybody busy and to keep kind of income so we could make payroll. And we were going to do, we called it Lamb Shack, and it was salads and hummus and lamb. And like an hour before our first service in February, we have no electricity whatsoever to those rooms. So it's fucking 39 degrees. We have no ovens, no lights. And I was like, oh my God. And there was a, like behind Zahav, behind the courtyard in the back of Zahav, is a convenience store that had 2 rationales somehow, which we, up until only recently, we never got. Now we have rationales. We've come the ovens,
But the bodega had them.
The bodega had them. We
Yeah.
we just had like like normal conduction ovens, and I was like, okay, okay. So luckily, the only things that have to be heated are the pita, the lamb, and the rice, and we can make it work with that. The salads are room temperature. So we lit what had to have been like 300 candles. We closed all the doors to kind of warm it up in the dining room. We told everybody to keep scarves on. And I was running with fucking sheet trays or hotel pans of glazed lamb shoulder, like 600 feet back and forth with pots of rice and all that. And we turned out dinner from that bodega for the first 2 nights. It was fucking crazy.
Wow.
Wait. For
It was 2 nights. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we had there was a fucking live wire. There was a
dude,
live wire coming from the
that's a
city.
drop on that. It's not only
Yeah.
like, okay, it's one thing of like, we're gonna make this work for one night.
We got to do this again.
It's like, yo, let's run it back. Like that worked okay, right?
It worked
Like,
okay.
bodega
Well, the
guys seemed
second,
cool.
so bodega guys were cool, and they definitely got lamb for their staff meal. And then we got those like those cassette burner, those propane burners.
Yeah.
So we upgraded like the next day and got those for like rice. But we were still glazing lamb in the bodega and running
like,
it.
playing scratch offs while you're like glazing lamb,
Or like,
hold on, yeah,
lighting
2 minutes on that
cigarettes.
shoulder.
Yeah. But I mean, I just having to run hotel pans of lamb shoulders across like a courtyard, it's just it's fucking nuts.
That's why like cities like Chicago and Philly are the fucking shit though. Because it's like you could go to a place and you're like, hey, I need to use 2 ovens for the next 6 hours. And they're like, yeah, no problem, I got you.
They're fine.
You know
They totally get it. Totally get it.
It's all right. You know what I mean? Like wipe your shoes. You're like,
Right.
yeah, I will. Like,
They're like, oh, you're from that restaurant next door? Yeah, okay, we know you. Come on in.
It is a good thing in community. I mean, it takes a village to raise a child and to maintain restaurants and small businesses. So
it takes every contact in your phone to do both. I feel
know.
like it's like, yo, who do I know who knows something about this? And then somebody's cousin's brother shows up and is like, yeah, listen, I'm going to replace the cord on the back of this cooler. Don't tell anyone I was here. This isn't a job I should be doing. But you made me dinner for my anniversary 3 years ago, so don't worry about it.
Right. And then you're like, actually, do you have any knife skills? Because we need you to like what part of service. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
you ever worked Garmo before? Like,
I mean, it is, I don't know, you sort of wish that you'd never have to do that stuff, but the reality is we do all the time, and you definitely get better at it.
Mm.
But man,
You know what the
That's
real messed up thing to me is like, and I think with all of us is like when you hear stories like that, there's a part of me where I'm like, that's the shit. And I wish I was there for that service so
oh
much.
yeah,
Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
was like, I want to be in that courtyard with you more than I can describe to people.
You got to make
Like
it
it's
happen.
such an unhealthy amount of like, man, like to like have to do that for 2
Are
nights.
you
of,
having a
like,
little
banging it out.
FOMO about the
Dude,
courtyard
completely.
run? You missed it.
Completely.
Joe?
He
Well,
could
I-
describe being on a beach
Right.
vacation. I'd be like, that's fine. That's great for you. I love that.
But this,
But he's
I
talking
want
I
it.
wanna be
cooking
there.
in a courtyard with like candlelight in the freezing cold, and I'm like, oh my god, brother, put me in.
Well,
Like,
don't
know
you
what I mean?
feel like what we do? It's like you're like the team that gets shot onto the asteroid to
Mhm,
blow it up. Like
mhm.
we do that every
Yeah.
night, you know. We're
Yeah.
part of like the Armageddon team.
You're
you know?
Bruce Willis every night.
I don't know. I don't know, or like Steve Buscemi, I think in that movie. Right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh man, Chef,
yeah.
thank you so much for
Oh my
joining
gosh,
us.
love
It
you
has
guys.
been
Thank you so much for
such a
having me.
blast hanging out.
This
with
was
you.
so fun, man. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're
Listen,
super busy.
I really
It's
appreciate it.
just an absolute pleasure.
It's my pleasure and my honor, and you know, I can't wait to see you all in Philly.
That's it for this episode of The Chef's Cut. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening, especially if you're watching on YouTube, where you can get full-length video of every episode. And be sure to follow us on IG at The Chef's Cut Pod. For Joe Flamm, I'm Adrienne Cheatham, and this has been The Chef's Cut, Life Beyond the Pass.